Um, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from afar. I'd like to talk a bit about the dilemma of teaching self-regulated teaching skills, commonly uh, referred to by the acronym SRL, to talented and gifted students. Um, I, some of the experts in education may not be entirely conversant or up to date with current research on SRL, basically in general, or SRL in talented students in particular. Um, Therefore, the aim of this paper is basically threefold. First, to briefly define SRL and its key components. Second, to briefly sketch and lay out what is known about teaching SRL to classroom students in a very cursory manner. And finally, to discuss whether or not talented students actually need to be instructed in SRL. Well, what is SRL? SRL is an active, constructive process whereby learners set goals for their learning and then attempt to monitor, regulate, and control their cognition, motivation, behavior, guided and constrained by their goals and the contextual features in the environment. This definition was first proposed by Paul Pindridge, whom you see here, and he has a wonderful paper in our handbook on Handbook of Self-Regulation, which is edited by Monique Bakers, Paul Pindridge, and yours truly. Self-regulated students are generally characterized as efficiently managing their own learning through goal setting, monitoring, strategy use, self-evaluating their achievement. Um, as you see in this schematic diagram, there are three major facets here. The first facet is forethought, even before actually engaging in a learning or testing situation. This includes self-assessment. What do I know about the material? What are my incoming behaviors and so forth? Goal setting. What am I going to get out of this learning situation? How am I going to go about in achieving these goals? And how certain am I that I have the wherewithal to actually do what's needed to succeed here. We move on from here to performance, which is basically self-regulation during the task and implementation of those strategies that were formalized in the forethought phase. And the next facet is self-reflection after the learning task or achievement task or assessment task. Students monitor their outcomes. They want to see to what extent they've achieved what they plan to achieve, how well did they do, to what do they attribute their success or failures. Over the past few decades, both behavioral and social cognitive theories have been successfully applied to help students learn self-regulated behaviors. So, teachers in the modern classroom and during homework activities now regularly introduce key facets of the SRL process. Students regularly receive explicit training by teachers in goal setting, strategy use, self-monitoring, and systemic practice in classroom settings. Students are taught how to analyze tasks in front of them, set effective goals for their study, learning, testing, choose the most appropriate strategy to achieve these goals, self-instruct to teach themselves how to manage their learning, self-judge, see how well they're doing, reinforce their attainments, and furthermore, teachers can mediate SRL strategies by demonstrating the use and effectiveness of various SRL techniques. So basically, teachers instruct students to do a number of things. You have a look here, I won't go into all of them. Anywhere from assessing the requirements of the task at hand, assessing their current knowledge, deciding on effective strategies, self-appraising their performance, attempting to attribute performance to internal, changeable, and controllable factors and decide what needs to be done to improve future performance. I'll leave this here for a minute so you can assimilate some of the things that may be helpful to you in the future in working with students who need these self-regulatory strategies. Okay. Research by a number of scholars, such as late Barry Zimmerman and Martinez Pons, suggests that SRL can actually be improved when instructional methods and environmental conditions support the use of a set of strategies directed towards the optimization of several factors. These include personal functioning, academic behavioral performance, and learning environment. So SRL may be facilitated via environmental conditions that provide students with opportunities to make choices, exercise volitional control, participate in assessments, engage in complex tasks, and seek help. Environmental conditions such as the organization of materials and clear expectations from teachers or mentors support the development and use of SRL strategies in teaching various skills. In fact, teachers who use explicit instruction and modeling of SRL strategies have more students who can use self-regulation strategies to study for longer periods and can respond to higher order thinking questions. Another important factor in self-regulated learning are the properties of the goals that are in front of the teacher-student. A number of goal properties, and we know this from goal theory and motivation research, a number of goal properties are especially effective for negotiating long-term tasks, particularly the proximity of the goal. The nearer the goal, the better. Adequate difficulty level, a goal that's not too easy and not too difficult for the student, is ideal. The specificity of the goal, how specific you can formulate the goal rather than something very general, such as I hope to get a handle on calculus. It's probably better to specify that I want to learn how to determine the specific differentiation of a function. So accordingly, students can learn how to break up long-term complex assignments. For example, penning a term paper in European or Asian history into short-term manageable tasks. That's really crucial. So learners, again, more readily accomplish the subtasks. And by completing each subtask, students develop their self-efficacy by eventually producing an organized and generally high-quality paper. Students who judge their learning process as inadequate can ask their teachers for assistance so the teachers can instruct these students in a more efficient strategy, can then use to more effectively promote their learning, students, in fact. How effective are SRL strategies when used in the classroom by qualified teachers? Well, a wide body of research has assessed the effectiveness of various strategy instructional procedures. Lynn Corno has been very active in this area. She was former editor of Educational Psychologist. In the review of interventions aiming at the improvement of student learning, Hattie and colleagues concluded way back in 1996 that most SR strategy interventions were indeed effective. They also found evidence for the near transfer of learning, that is, the transfer of learning to tasks that are closely related to the original learning task. Now, the question I'd like to pose before you is, should we teach SRL skills to talented and gifted students? I'd like you to take a moment and reach some sort of decision whether it's appropriate or inappropriate, ineffective, useless, and effective, and so forth, and try to provide perhaps rationale or reasons for that. Well, a major dilemma facing teachers in gifted education is whether or not their talented and high-ability students actually need to be instructed in SRL skills. If so, should instruction be tailored to their specific needs and talents, or should instruction be no different from instructional strategies designed for their non-identified counterparts? So, well, let's look at both sides of the dilemma, both horns of the dilemma. One can argue, for example, that SRL strategies and interventions for gifted and talented learners shouldn't be ostensibly different, basically, from those instructional strategies designed for use among typical learners. It would seem important to enhance and strengthen useful skills and help students not using them to their benefit realize how they would benefit from employing SRL strategies in their learning. Now, on the other hand, one may argue perhaps it's useless. There's no need to teach talented, high-ability students. They themselves are talented, perhaps in part, because they inherently know how to use these strategies. They frequently succeed in school without deliberately using them in their academic learning, for example. Some researchers have suggested that many academically talented students fail to recognize the use of SRL strategies because they tend to do well over time, especially in mixed ability classes, without self-regulating their learning. This was proposed by Heidrun Steger, a colleague of mine in this area. Thus, perhaps these talented students do not require special instruction in the use of SRL skills. In addition, metacognitive skills have been said to be a significant signature strength of academically talented students, and research suggests they are better at using these metacognitive strategies than other counterparts. In order to resolve this dilemma, it's imperative to take the learning context into consideration. Specifically, it stands to reason that SRL becomes important for talented and high-ability learners who are working towards excellence and are being challenged in a particular talent domain. So it makes a difference whether SRL competencies are taught to groups of talented learners in challenging learning settings or to individual talented learners in inclusive or mixed ability settings. Perhaps less important mixed ability, more important challenging gifted classes. It's important to consider the difficulty level of the task to be negotiated, because automatizing self-regulated skills can actually free up some working memory. So we conclude by noting that studies indicate that learners need to invest about 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to achieve excellence. This rule of thumb holds relatively independently of learners' level of talent and the talent domains. So during this process, educational agents play a prominent role in the course of expertise acquisition. Nevertheless, such extensive learning process can't be optimally designed without SL. So according to this approach, teacher for the gifted should make sure that gifted learners begin training their SL competencies when engaged in cognitive tasks as early as possible. And of course, don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits. Thank you very much.